This is where we have Hamlet. I have a hose run from the connector at the goats where they get their water. So the same hose runs out here on a splitter. You have to have the hose up above their container with pigs because they'll chew on the hose and destroy it. So his water, I can turn it on from the backyard and it shoots up here into the swimming pool. And that way he has drinking water and cooling off water. Pick, 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 pick. He's already out there. He's like, I'm waiting for you. The grass has come back a lot better with him out here as opposed to the pony being out here. And he hasn't been rooting anywhere. He's been going through eating all of Varna's manure, but that's about it. We have to keep the bottom of the electric fence pretty well trimmed back. He learned about electric fences over at Sarah and Ryan Grover's at Grover Clan Acre because their fence is really, really hot. Ours is not hot. But because he already needs to respect the fence, he stayed in. We have him to breed the 2 gilts that are over at Ryan and Sarah's. And he doesn't eat very much. He's the Idaho pasture pig. He just doesn't eat very much. I've got the old 50-gallon drum. Hi, pig pig. You see, he just doesn't eat very much. But we just like to make sure that he has plenty. Paige likes to come out here and scratch him and play with him. And as long as she doesn't have a bucket of food, she's fine doing that. But it's not that he nips when she has food, it's that he'll just kind of feel like she's not focused on what she's supposed to be doing if she has food. And so he will be thinking about food, she'll be thinking about playing, and neither of them get what they want. So one of the reasons we did this is because he was pushing his feed trough across the pasture. And it made it hard for me to come and just dump it over the fence. The more I have to go in and out, the less time efficient it is. And so tying the container here and having it something that encloses his head so that if I have to pour milk in, his head being there doesn't hurt anything. I'm not going to spill anything out of the bucket. It just goes into the bucket. So I drilled holes in it and then tied it in 4 different places to a stake, into the fence, and this way he doesn't waste food. You can see where I just cut a hole in it. He doesn't waste food. If for some reason I needed to be putting his water in here too, I could put his water in here too. It wouldn't be getting spilled. He has nice trees back here. Along the back, instead of using string, I used barbed wire to tie the pallets together, just because as they're rooting around, that seems to kind of be where they isolate, is into hills. That's where they kind of like to focus their destructive potential. But the fences worked really well to keep him in. If he'd been a baby pig when we brought him, a lot of these holes would have been way too big. Probably if we wanted to improve things a little bit, we would just get a hotter electric fence. But you can see how nice the pasture's coming in down here. He does graze on it. He would probably really like to get out and just graze everything, and I'm tempted to let him do it just because I brought all the goats into the shed. The flies out in the long grass are much, much worse than they are in the little shed. And after what happened to Cloud, even though we've been safe tethering them out for 4 years, because I don't know what happened to her, as far as exactly how she died, what happened, I just feel so much more secure knowing that they're in an enclosed space where when I give them water, I know that they got water, I know that they have shelter from the rain, and there's nothing a collar can get caught on. I'm not saying that's how she died, but it just takes some of the guesswork of whether or not they're safe out of the equation for me. And I'm okay with that. So right now, what I kind of think I want to do next, now that I have all the animals in one space, I can kind of come out here and clean things up a little bit. Just when you have little kids that are helping you, and when you also have a lot of animals, things get left out, and they get dirty, and they get just kind of abandoned. And so I just kind of want to come out and clean everything up. And this spot here was like an actual dumping ground for the neighborhood. This space in here, because our house was abandoned for 15 years, and people knew that it was empty, they would bring their trash out here and just dump it. And so when we first moved here, we spent a lot of time cleaning up garbage, a lot of it metal. We had to do a really big cleanup before we would let Varna in here. And you can see this stake here. That is something that got unearthed that needs to be pulled out. We just, when you have animals, however many animals you are, that's how many animals you have, that's how many children you have. I need to go and get the wood pile cleaned back up. And on top of that, I need to go and lay pallets down inside the school bus shed. Let's see, where am I pointing? There we go. I need to go clean up and get garbage out of the school bus shed and lay pallets down and start stacking wood inside that, because our winters lately haven't been terribly cold, and so we've had a lot of thaw freeze, which means all your water melts down into your wood, and then you have wet firewood. And that's why we had such a problem last year with creosote buildup and chimney fires, was because we actually never got below 0. And we had just a lot of wet and then frozen and then wet and frozen. We're not feeding that hay. To anything. It got, the tarp that we had on it was a couple years old, and the water went through all that rain we had this spring went through the holes in the tarp and got it all wet. So I will just be using it for mulch, which is okay. That's not a bad thing. But we still have a full half-ton there. A full half-ton there that we bought for Varna, and I told you guys in another video that we had to send Varna back. The flies, when we had that really bad heat wave, that really strong heat wave, it brought all the flies out, and she was just losing her mind. And so she went to all of my fruit bushes because they were just the right height, and she walked over the top of them and flattened them, and then just kind of pulverized them. So my elderberry bushes are flat, and we brought her out here thinking that, well, maybe it was just fruit bushes she felt that way about, and she seemed to want to stay with the goats. So we brought her out here in the back, and at night, she'd stay by the goats during the day because she wanted their company. But then at night, she went back to my windbreak and walked over the top of all of my dogwoods and flattened all of them. And those are the ones that I've really been trying to get to do well, so that we can block some of those pesticides from the neighbor. But and you can kind of see what the goats did, and the pony. They kind of knocked our wood down a bit, so again, I need to clean out the shed. We've got most of it emptied out, but right now I just need to go through and maybe Craigslist a lot of stuff. This is our tin collection for when we build sheds for my father-in-law when his calf shed blew down. So we've got all that, and I've got it anchored and segregated off because it's so very sharp. If an animal got out, or a child, we really wouldn't want him to be getting hurt by it. So need to come out and restock the firewood. Pardon me. The weather has been cooler. We dropped by almost 20 degrees. I don't like them being out here in this small space. It is small for this many animals. but it's just what I have right now. And we're thinking about things and trying to figure out other solutions. So they're doing well. I think they're more content in here with company for, each other's company. They have enough food. What's the matter, Mama? They have enough food. This is how much I have left to go through before I start on Varna's hay. And then it's, as soon as I have this empty, it's about time for me to start buying hay for this winter. We're just milking chamomile right now. And she's giving 1.5 gallons, 1 milking a day. It's a lot of milk. She has come down by 1 quart since we took her off the pasture. So she's given 1.5 gallons instead of, or no, she's given 1.25 gallons rather than 1.5 gallons, which I'm okay with because it was too much milk. So again, on a farm, it's a perpetual cleaning up event. The girls like to come out and make their spider webs with string and their little hoops and greenhouses, and that's my tarp for watering. So that's out here and that's messy. Most of this pipe I've already put in the garbage once, but the girls really like to play with it, so they come out and pull it back out of the garbage. And this is the girls' little windsock that they attach to a post. The pasture's looking pretty good. We're only watering every 2 weeks. And because I left it so long this time, because we had so few goats on it, it's been able to come up and shade itself. So we haven't had any brown spots or anything. Everything's pretty green because we didn't let them graze it down. And I had plenty to move them to. I should have cut the alfalfa sooner. It always gets away from me. Once it gets to this stage, the animals don't want to eat it. I don't know if the nutritional value has gone out of it or if it's just too tough. But they don't want to eat it at this stage when it's in full bloom. And usually I come out and try to cut it with the scythe at least twice a year. And this year, it's just more than I've been able to do. So we didn't do that this year. We had this up trying to keep the ducks in around the greenhouse. And it didn't work. But it's better than having spent a lot of money on expensive fencing and then not have that work either. So we're still working on that because I'd like them to have a bigger space. But with fewer chickens and having gotten rid of the black Swedish breeding pair, the ducks are very content in the back and they haven't been doing any damage. They seem to just be really happy back there, babies and Khaki Campbells and Mama. And we got a new Muscovy Drake. When you have a new animal that you introduce, I will say this, when you have a new animal that you introduce, it's best to have them free range because then they can get away from the other animals and they're not trying to kill them. First thing that happened when we put him in the backyard was that Mama Muscovy just went after him and he was terrified. And then the rooster went after him and he was terrified, even though he's bigger. And so I put water and food in strategic places that were hidden around the backyard so that he could eat on the sly so she wasn't starving him out. And now a week later, he is able to come out and bathe with everybody else and he's seen as one of them. But if I hadn't had food and water for him in those kind of secret places where I showed them to him where they were when I found his hiding spot, that's where I put it. If I hadn't done that, he might have starved to death. So that's kind of important. That is mulberry. One mulberry, other mulberry. That one's not so happy because it's right underneath the poplar. So I probably need to cut that one back. It looks really nice now that we've had some rain. Let's see. So out here, again, in permaculture, you're supposed to put the places that you want to use the most closest to your house. And Mr. Dirt felt really strongly it needed to be out here over the drain field because we don't use this for anything else. But it makes it difficult for me to run from the house to back here and get all my stuff put up. And so when I'm done with something, I just put it out here because I don't have time to run it back to where they belong. So it looks like I'm going to have a pretty good cleanup here once things kind of calm down as far as the schedule. Okay, so I have flowers here because I'm not getting any pollinators inside the greenhouse, none. And I have a box here of flowers, flower seeds, and then I'm going to mulch this up really, really good so that as they go to seed, they will reseed the mulch, and hopefully we'll have a really good bed of naturalized flowers. They're going to be things like yarrow and, oh, what are some of the others? Hollyhocks. Let's see. Anyway, perennial flowers. Lots of perennial or self-seeding flowers because I want this whole thing to be flowers so that we can attract some pollinators into here, and I need to get the same thing in here right up against that, a big growth of naturalized flowers to attract bees in. Is there anything else? Doesn't that wild cherry look good? This one right here. Everything back here is doing pretty good. I'm pretty sure that the dogwoods will snap out of it. They're pretty resilient, and I have regular water on them, so I think they'll be okay. The windbreak is actually looking pretty good. You can still tell which trees have the most mulch and manure at the bottom and which ones don't get drowned once every 2 weeks when I flood irrigate. So I am kind of tempted to go and run a line of straw bales along the inside of the windbreak to block water, to eventually block water so that it can't get back into the windbreak and drown things, just to make the water a little bit more regular for those poor trees. Let's see. Again, everything back here is pretty happy. I have all those drip lines to everything, and I run them every 2 days right now. I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to saturate the soil so that it'll spread out further, so that when I put mulch down, it'll have water there to retain. And in the front, one of the reasons I do that is to drown out the voles. The trees that are not getting watered are the crabapple, the pear, these apples, the Siberian pea shrubs, the grapes, and the other pear tree. I did start watering the pear tree because I had to put the duck pond somewhere. And so it just is under the pear tree because that's the biggest tree I have back there that's close to my hose. Yes, kitty. I see you. And so I have the duck pond right there under the pear tree just so that they have shade, so that their pool is not heating up on them in the sunlight. And so just within the last week, they started to, I guess I am watering that pear tree now. So in here, hi guys, you made a mess. In here, what I've been harvesting is milk thistle. And when they suddenly decide to drop their seeds, they just really suddenly decide to drop their seeds. And so I've been coming out and watching. You can see there's a little seed right there. See it? Milk thistle is supposed to be good for liver cleansing. And if your liver gets congested, you start to get itchy skin, sinus infections, things that have to do with histamine or respiratory. If your liver's not happy, you're going to be itchy and not breathing very well. And so I came through and started harvesting those seeds. And what you do, to my understanding, is you grind those seeds up and take them as a supplement for, hi kitty, I'm not letting you in, as a supplement for liver congestion. Now, these little beauties are not doing as well out in the greenhouse as they were in the window of my house. I am giving them rabbit manure tea, and they perked up. I did give them the slow release fertilizer tablets, and they did not like that. And again, all of these are flowers. They're all flowers. The melons look good. Again, they're not being fertilized. I have no fertilizers in here. Sorry. Fertilized as in bees. I have some pretty good peppers going. I have tomatoes going, but again, no fertilizers as in bees. You're not going to get a whole lot of fruit. And my little quail came out and dumped out their food. I do have squash that are doing pretty well. These boxes, I don't really care for. I can't get enough water into them to make them happy. And that's kind of frustrating. This is my valerian. Looks like it finally has enough sunlight now that I cut all those peas out. This is my accidental potato that I didn't really want to be in there. What I was trying to do was plant a rose bush, not a potato. I have had a problem with aphids around my peppers. The peppers that are planted with basil, I haven't had any problem with. The peppers that I don't have planted with basil are not happy. And the reason that I haven't just ripped it out and taken it out of the greenhouse is that I see that the aphids are on the plant for a while, and then they go away from the plant. In other spots where this happened, they didn't migrate to other plants, they just kind of died. These ones have migrated to this plant, to this tomato. And I could just rip them both out, and I might do that. One other thing that happened was that Paige came out to do something for me in the greenhouse and decided to go on a rambunctious quail egg hunt and came through and snapped half of my tomatoes, so that I had to come out and trim them back and cut them down and that kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons why the tomatoes are looking kind of small for the age. The other thing is that I have some exuberant grass and weeds coming in that I haven't had time to take care of. So in the future, when I have this set up as more permanent, I am going to set up my beds so that I have a walking space up next to the plastic so that I can set down my cardboard. I just went to the grocery store and got more cardboard so that I can put it down in the paths to take some of the weeds down. I transplanted my alpine strawberries. The best way that I found to do alpine strawberries is in those little Jiffy pot things, the ones that are little discs and they pop up. The little roots at the beginning, the little roots of the alpine strawberries are so delicate that every time I tried to transplant them, it was killing them. The stalks are delicate, the roots are delicate, and by putting them in a little Jiffy pot, it's self-contained. I've been able to transplant it twice, and they've been just fine. So I've transplanted it to 4 different spots, the alpine strawberries. I'd like to transplant them out into the garden, and I need to do the same thing with my comfrey. I need to take all the comfrey out of these pots. I need to just kind of break the pots, pull the comfrey out, and go plant it in a spot where I have a lot of water when I irrigate, and set that up as just a really good source for digging up new roots. But before I can do that, I need to put up a cage so that the ducks can't get to them, because the ducks' favorite food is comfrey. And so here's some of the other things we have going. You see the basil? These peppers are just fine. They're surrounded by basil. It's hard to have kids come out into the greenhouse because these guys kind of got bent over. I don't know how well they're going to do. Once they kind of get bent over like that, it's hard to get them to stand back up. It complicates things to have the quail out here in the greenhouse just because I have to find eggs. But at the same time, it gives me a reason that I have to come out and check on the greenhouse. See, there's an alpine strawberry, and they are exotic and lovely. having the quail out here means that I have an animal out here that I have to come out and feed and water. And so I can't just look at things and say, well, I don't really care about the garden anymore. It's okay with me if it doesn't make it. You can't say that if you've got living animals out here. And so by having them out here, it means I have to come out and check on my garden, which means that when I get tired, I can't just give up on the garden. This is the cutting celery. And I have cut it twice. Now I need to come out and cut it one more time. And this is, the reason this looks dead is because I took four little blocks of alpine strawberries out of here, just because they were starting to crowd themselves. There's two. 1, 2. I just planted them in boxes that I'd already harvested. Here's another one. And there's the other one. And this used to be carrots, and now it's where the little quail like to dust bath. This is the first pepper that the aphids were on, really, really bad. And you can see that they're gone. They didn't transfer to the plants around them. They're gone, and now this little pepper plant is putting on fruit. So I have had a little bit of a problem with morning glory and grass. However, the spots where I did put down mulch have stayed weed free. And so if I had given myself enough space along the outside to put down mulch, I wouldn't have this problem with weeds right now, because the boxes kind of contain the water. The one problem that I have had is that because I fill this up from the backyard, I don't actually come back here to fill this up. I have had a problem where a couple times I had forgotten how much water was in it, or that I'd already filled it up, and I ended up with water that came and spread like that through the greenhouse. And that's why I have so much exuberant weed growth here now, is because this water overflowed. And so now I count to 100, and I double check every time I leave the greenhouse to see how tall it is, so that next time I fill it up from the backyard when I'm watering the animals, I can just look at it and say, don't fill it up so high. This one is a bit of a sprawl. I have so much mix in here. I've got tomatoes and lettuce and motherwort, and over there I've got nettles, and in this one I have squash and tomatoes. In here I have sage and strawberries and a tomato. And you have to be really careful when you're tying these up, because yep, it will cut them off. You have to just watch it. So I need to untie that and loosen it up a bit. This one over here is my experiment in the straw. I have to keep giving it rabbit manure tea so that it stays happy. But the straw is keeping weeds down. The quail walking back and forth over it and pooping on it has kept weeds down. And here is the piece de resistance, my milk thistle. So I'm waiting for some more to open up. When it comes to seeds and pollination, all that kind of thing, the grass and everything, it's heat activated. So if it gets really, really hot, that's when things open up and start to float away. Hi, little quail. The pollen from the dill is falling onto the leaves of the squash, and that's what that color is. For the squash, I think that the straw bales actually work pretty well. There's more eggs I need to collect. At this point, it's kind of hard to get in there. I'm really excited for when these guys actually start to really blossom, so I can clip them all. And then I can clip back the milk thistle and have it out of the greenhouse. So that's what's going on back here. Trying to think if there's anything else. The beans did not like it back here at all. But again, first year, if you don't experiment and put everything in, you don't know what you would change next year. I think that having a heater out here, a little greenhouse heater, is so that you could start things sooner and know they weren't going to die would be really helpful. I think that having permanent beds that have a lot of cardboard under them. So what I would do is I would clear everything out. I would probably put down something like 3 inches of cardboard on the ground. And then I would probably build beds, 2 beds. 1, 2. If I thought I could fit it, I would probably put in 3. I just see that if I don't have enough space to work next to those walls along the side, that I can't get in there to get. I've weeded them several times now, and I still just get a lot of grass in there, but I have absolutely no mulch over there. There's no mulch. And as the cardboard breaks down, I start to have more and more water getting to the weeds. And so we went to the grocery store and got a whole bunch of cardboard and put that down in the paths to help with that. And I kind of feel like now is a good time for me to start getting my beds ready for my winter garden. But I need to wait until I can clear some of this stuff out and either get it transplanted out to the backyard garden or just taken out because maybe it's not going to be as successful as we want it to be. As I've seen something that doesn't look super healthy, I have just pulled it out. That's why I have so much out here, is because if it looks bad, I just pull it out. If it's producing at all, I leave it in. But the reason I'm doing that is because if I see that something else would do better in that spot, I need to just kind of be a little ruthless in doing that. Which is why I kind of think that I want to take out this, even though it has peppers on it. I kind of want to take it out. Yeah. The reason I'm not really bothering a lot with fertilizing the squash right now is because I have a lot of squash up in the front pasture. A lot of squash, a lot of pumpkins. And so this back here was more of an experiment than anything. You can see it's starting to grow up into the milk thistle. I had to take string and wrap it around the milk thistle twice because it was starting to sprawl out into the greenhouse, and it's extremely sharp. All of these little poinkers on it are extremely sharp. They really hurt. And every time I came in here to water them, I couldn't get through without getting hurt. So that's where we stand. And we'll talk to you guys later.